Tell me, it says live on YouTube. We're good?
Okay, and we are live here on YouTube, where the videos will be available later today for anyone who is interested. I want to thank everyone who's been joining us all morning, and certainly for the last but not least of these classes. I want to thank all of the presenters thus far, and I want to introduce our latest presenter, our last presenter of the morning, Mrs. Michal Jacob. Before I knew Mrs. Jacob, I knew her husband, Ovi Jacob, the Sephardi rabbi at BRS, and before he was the Sephardi rabbi at BRS, he was in Shalavim with me and Rabbi Sherman. So it's been a very nostalgic morning for me to be able to learn with so many friends and Saverim, and to be able to reconnect in such a meaningful way. I want to thank Mrs. Jacob for taking the time. A very busy schedule. I know she's teaching 2 p.m. Eastern time, so I don't want to take any of her time. Just introduce her that she's the Mashkiach Ruchanit at Midrasha Torah. And again, we are very appreciative that you've chosen to spend part of your Yom Ha'atzmaut with us. Without further ado, Mrs. Michal Jacob.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Moskowitz. It's so nice to be back with the people of Boca. We actually think back to our time there so nostalgically. Rabbi Moskowitz wasn't there when we were there, but we started out there as a young couple. Actually, Rabbi Sherman mentioned this morning that he's responsible for bringing many people to Boca, and actually we are one of them. We saw him on a street corner, and he said, "Come with us to Boca," and we actually said, "Okay," which was shocking, but we were there for 5 years. We started our family there, and Rabbi Goldberg and Yocheved really took us in and really taught us what it means to be a part of a community and to be leaders of a community, and their fingers always on the pulse of what's going on. So I wasn't surprised when Rabbi Moskowitz reached out and decided to use this opportunity of virtual learning to be able to contact those in Israel. So I'm always watching what's going on in BRS, and I'm always inspired by what's going on there. What I want to talk about a little bit tonight is what we've learned for years and years and years since we were little, that we daven towards Yerushalayim, that we turn our hearts towards Yerushalayim when we daven. And what I want to speak about tonight is why this is so. Why do we turn our hearts towards Yerushalayim? And maybe throughout some of the text, as we're learning them, it will help us when we're davening, when we're benching, when we focus on those terms. It will help us be able to concentrate and turn our hearts towards Yerushalayim in an attempt to create more kavana and create a deeper connection with Eretz Yisrael. I'm going to share my screen for you in the source sheet here. I'm happy to send the source sheet to anybody who wants. So you could email me, you could get my email from Rabbi Moskowitz if you want. I'm often asking Rabbi Goldberg for many of his sources, so feel free to email me. The Midrash tells that after Yaakov had his one-on-one with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it tells us, and I'll read from the Midrash, his one-on-one, we'd call it in my house, maybe a little bit of a WWF, but it's bracketed here. Mikan amru ki kol mi shehu mitpalal b'Yerushalayim ki ilu mitpalal lifnei kisei hakavod sheshar hashamayim hu sham upetach patuach lishmoa tefila shenemar v'zeh shar hashamayim. That in that spot where Yaakov Avinu had his one-on-one with Hashem, that is the Shar HaShamayim. That is a spot in Yerushalayim where it's a place that Hashem listens to our tefillah. And what we want to talk tonight is why. Why is Yerushalayim a spot where we really are able to connect more deeply to Hashem? We're going to look at it in 3 realms. Number 1, in the past, the Torah realm. Actually, Yerushalayim was not mentioned in the Chamisha Chumshei Torah at all. You might be surprised by that. So we're going to look at it in the Torah realm, in the past. We're going to look at in the future, in the Nevi'im. Yerushalayim is mentioned in the Nevi'im many times. We're going to look at in the future. And probably the hardest one we're going to discuss tonight is now, the modern time, because that, of course, takes the most effort for us. So we're going to start Yerushalayim in the Torah. And as I said, it's not mentioned in the Torah specifically, the Chamishi Chumshei Torah, and we're going to touch on why. So the first story is actually with Malchi Tzedek in Breishi Yudalid. Umalchi Tzedek Melech Shalim Hotzi Lechem V'Yayin V'Hu Kohen. And there was this king named Malchi Tzedek. He was a righteous king, and it was the place that he had sovereignty over was very, very righteous. And it was the place that he ruled over was called Shalim. And Vayivarchehu, and he meets Avram and he blesses him. And he points out and this interaction between Malchi Tzedek and Abraham shows us that he blessed Abraham, and Malchi Tzedek was a king over righteous people, and his place was called Shalim. Right? Ibn Ezra tells us, Malchi Tzedek Nikra Shemo. Why is it called that? Bavor Shalim, Ki Yerushalayim. So we see it's a Rechtas is actually put two stories together. The second one you're probably a little bit more familiar with, right? The words that I bolded here. The final 10 test of Abraham is, of course, everyone knows the Akedah. And Hashem says, Kachna et bincha et yechidcha asher hafta et Yitzchak. And where should they go? El Eretz HaMoriah. They're going to go to this Eretz Moriah. And what's going to happen on their journey as they walk towards there? Avram wakes up early and he's walking towards the place. And there's a milah mancha. There's a word that keeps being repeated, and that is makom, the place. Right? He gathers all his stuff, vayelech el hamakom, and he goes to the place. Amar Elokim, vayavo el hamakom, and he goes to the place. Asher Amar Elokim. Everyone knows how the story ends. Baruch Hashem, Avram does not sacrifice Yitzchak, but here we see a true understanding of what Yirat Shamayim means. Avram does not sacrifice Yitzchak, but he understands that he had to and he could have. And at the end of this, he names this place, Vayikra El Hamakom, Aman Pasuk Yidalid, Vayikra Avram Shema Makom Hahu, Hashem Yireh, Asher Yomar Hayom Bahar Hashem Yireh. What does he call this place? Hashem Yireh, right? Hashem saw, and it's almost, I think, a play on words of Yirat Hashem. What is Yirat Hashem? Yirat Hashem is this understanding of, I am going to bow my head to God, even though I don't fully understand what he wants of me. I'm going to bow my head and I'm going to do it. Hashem saw Abraham's Yirat Hashem, Bahar Hashem Yira'eh, and Hashem was seen. It's kind of a play on words. So how do we get Yerushalayim from this? You want to ask me? Breshit Rabbah, keep going down in the sources, puts these two stories together. What happens? This is a story from Breshit Rabbah that's Hashem talking, and he said, my favorite place, right? When you're going to name your child, right? You say, I want this name and I want that name, and all of a sudden your kid has 4 names and you actually don't use any of them. I'm sure people are familiar with that, but Hashem takes 2 names, the Shalim from Malchi Tzedek and the Yareh from Har HaMoriah, from the Akedah, and he puts them together. Ela Harini, I'm on the last line. Ela Harini, Kore Oto Yerushalayim. I'm going to put those 2 together. Kamosh Nikra Ushneim, Yireh and Shalim. And this is actually the first time that this idea of justice and the idea of bowing to God without fully understand comes together. And where does it come together? On this Hamakom, this place that we know is Har HaMoriah, this place that we know that eventually will be the building of the Beit HaMikdash. So if you want to think back to something, you want to feel something, this is it. And I always tell my students, right, if my husband Ovi wanted to recreate something romantic for me, maybe he would go back to the place of our first date. Unfortunately, it's closed down. Or maybe he would go back to the place that we got engaged. Unfortunately, that restaurant's also closed down. But the idea is when you want to recreate a feeling, you go back to an important place. And that was in this story of the past, the Tanakh, these 2 important things that happened there. But that's not going to be it. As we know, Yerushalayim is not referred to specifically in the Torah, but it's always referred to as Hamakom Asher Yivchar Hashem. And that's going to be the next sources. The place that Hashem will choose. And we're going to see maybe why it's phrased like that. Look at this next source. What do we have to do? Hashem Elokeichem mikol shivteichem lasum et shemo sham l'shechno tidrishu ubatem shama. Hashem is going to dwell there, and we need to search it out. We need to find that. We need to find our spot within that. And I heard Rabbi Tarragon once say that perhaps the reason that Yerushalayim is not mentioned explicitly in the Torah, in the Chamishei Chumshei Torah, is this idea that we have to find our own. We have to search it out. L'shechno tidrishu ubatem shama. And the Torah does go on to say, "V'zavachta Pesach Hashem ubakar b'makom asher yidchar Hashem." We are supposed to go to Yerushalayim 3 times a year. We are fortunate to live in Eretz Yisrael, and before Corona crisis, we went to the Kotel about every 6 weeks. And we would get in the car, and after everybody was fighting about where they would sit, and I know it's a fight that parents will never understand about their kids, but I know it happens in every family. I want to sit here, I want to sit there. And finally, when the fight is done and we're on the road, it is not lost on us that within a half an hour from where we live, we could be in Hamakom Asher Yivchar Hashem, the place that Hashem chose. And that is not lost on my kids. And we take every advantage of the time that we have to go and spend time there. Shlomo eventually builds the Beit HaMikdash there. And I love this. In Divrei Hayamim, it specifically says, Vayichal Shlomo livnot et Beit Hashem b'Yerushalayim, Har HaMoriah, specifically that place. But often when we think of the Beit HaMikdash, we think of the Korbanot. And a lot of us can't necessarily connect to the Korbanot in that way. We don't have Korbanot now. We're not sure what's going to be in the future. But if you look back in the Psukim of Malachim, Shlomo actually says that that's not just what the Beit HaMikdash is about. The Beit HaMikdash, if you read Pasuk Chavchet, Upanita et el tfilat avdecha ve'el techinato Hashem Elokai lishmoa el rina ve'el hatfila asher avdecha mitpalel lefanecha hayom. That the purpose of the Beit HaMikdash was so that each one of us could go, turn to God, pour our hearts out to God, and that He will listen to us. And it's not just about the Korbanot. It's about us having a place in which we could connect to God. And if we're thinking about these things, perhaps when we say Uvnei Yerushalayim, when we say U'Yerushalayim Ircha in our davening, perhaps it will be able to muster up a little bit more kavana in our hearts. So that was the past, right? The past in Tanakh. Why do we turn our hearts towards Yerushalayim? Because it's a really special place that important things happen. And Hashem wants to share that sentimental value with us. That's the past. The future, as I said, in the Nevi'im, it mentions Yerushalayim many, many times. And what's going to happen? In Yeshayahu, it says, Hadavar asher chazai Yeshayahu ben Amos al Yehuda Yerushalayim v'ya b'acharit hayamim nachon yeh har Beit Hashem v'rosh harim. Everyone's going to recognize this. Everyone's going to recognize Yerushalayim. Everyone's going to recognize the people of Israel. This is going to be something that's so clear to everybody, and Yerushalayim will stand up before everybody. Look at the next source in Zechariah. Mi ata har gadol lifnei Zerubbabel lemishor, v'hotzi et ha'even harosha hatisuot chen chen la. What's going to happen? The mountains around Yerushalayim. I'm sure you've heard the song, right? That Yerushalayim now is Harim Savivla. That the mountains are around Yerushalayim, and maybe it has a little bit of a murky place in history. Maybe we're not sure. It was hard for us to get it back, right? And what's going to happen? The mountains around Yerushalayim in the future are going to flatten, and it's going to stand up very tall. So it's going to even be on a physical level, something that everybody could see. And this last one, my father actually showed me, because this is such his mind, that what is Yerushalayim going to be for the Jewish people? Beitin HaGadol b'Yerushalayim him ikar Torah Shabbat Peh. The Beitin HaGadol is going to sit in Yerushalayim. And we will no longer have maybe I eat kitniot and other people don't eat kitniot. I keep 2 days yontif when I come to Israel, or I keep 1 day yontif when I go to Israel, and you don't. The Beit Din is something that's going to connect all of us, and that is going to be central in Yerushalayim. So the future is something that we could see on a physical level and also on a unity level, that in Yerushalayim, we're going to have this unity and it's going to stand up very, very tall. So these are two ideas that you could be thinking about when it comes to the past and when it comes to the future. Questions? I'm always happy for people to unmute and pipe in. I'm begging my students on Zoom to unmute. Unfortunately, not everybody takes me up on it, but if you have questions, let me know. Now we're going to get to modern times. And modern times is, of course, the hardest because it takes the most effort from our point of view, from our time. And I'm sure people are feeling this. I think we're in day number 45, I'm not sure, of Corona crisis. And I heard Rav Moshe Lichtenstein actually say, in terms of davening during Corona, that often that we go to shul, and going to shul is an amazing thing, and davening with the tzibur is an amazing thing. But, and I even saw Rabbi Goldberg go into your Beit Knesset, the Erev Shabbos of, week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, because he missed the shul so much. And going to a shul is an amazing thing. And the kavanah that you feel and the tzibur, it brings you to a level of kavanah. But what Rav Moshe Lichtenstein says is that sometimes that it carries you. It does a lot of the work for you. And in Corona crisis, when you're davening by yourself, you have to put that much more effort into it. And I would say the same thing for Yom HaAtzmaut today. It would have been easy for us to take our kids, go on an awesome tiyul, have a great barbecue with friends, and we would have felt great. We would have felt amazing, of course, right? We live in a great land. But that wasn't the case for today. So we had to dig a little bit deeper into making it more meaningful for our family. And that's what this modern times is. Digging deeper to make it more meaningful for your family. And I want to suggest a few possible ways to do it, and perhaps tell a little bit of our story in that as well. If you're looking at the modern times, right, this might ring, this Tehillim, Shir Malet B'Shuv Hashem Et Shivat Zion Hayinu Kecholmim, right? It was a dream for so many years, for 2,000 years. We dreamed to come back to Yerushalayim. We dreamed to go to the Kotel. And if you think about when we had Israel, but we couldn't go to Yerushalayim, there was a wall. Everybody knows the Plaza Hotel and that famous Super Saul. There was a big wall there, and we couldn't go there. And that's not the Yerushalayim that we think of now. The Yerushalayim that we think of now is full of hotels and full of restaurants and lively, and the Machane Yehuda and the Shuk has a nightlife now, and it's a bustling town. But that's not what it was always like. And I think that we need to implore that and help our kids understand that that wasn't what always it was like, and help our kids understand that the special gift that we have today. And one way to do that is by talking about it. Talking about your experiences in Israel, talking about when you were there, different things that you experienced there, different learning, different times you went to the Kotel. Talking about it gives not just a latent awareness, but a real awareness. I remember when I was often taught a Chumash class, and I would say, whenever you get to 2 prakim in Chumash, we would compare them, 2 prakim that are similar. We would compare them. And we did this time after time. And finally I say, okay, guys, what do we do when we get to 2 prakim, 2 stories in the Torah that are similar? And everyone stared at me. And because sometimes you need to say, this is a skill. This is what we're doing. So you need to talk about it as much as you can. And if you have an opportunity to go on vacation, you should think about Israel as a vacation spot. And when you have an opportunity to go on vacation to Israel, you should make the Kotel stop number 1. You shouldn't put it on the itinerary as day number 4. Maybe we'll get to it. We'll sneak it in. you should have this idea with your kids that you drop your bags and you go to the kotel, because that's what we waited for 2,000 years, to daven at this place. And if we impart that onto our kids, then when we go back and we're davening, Uvnei Yerushalayim, right? V'Yerushalayim Ircha, that's something that they'll be able to think about. They'll be able to think about those memories, and they'll be able to, I think, conjure up a little bit more kavana in terms of thinking, turning their hearts towards Yerushalayim. Many people ask, in terms of modern times, why did you make Aliyah? And I think that I heard someone say, it's like asking someone, why do you love your kids? I can't really answer that necessarily. Why did I make Aliyah? But I want to talk for 2 minutes about how we came to make Aliyah. And that is because we visited Israel many times. We came here on vacations and we loved it. We loved it as a vacation spot. I grew up in an Orthodox home with a very Zionistic parents. And again, I had a latent awareness of Israel. I knew it was in the back of my mind. I always knew it was correct to live in Israel, but I wasn't sure if it was going to happen. When I visited Poland in my Shana Aleph, and realizing that one of the things that came out of the Holocaust was the state of Israel, I did feel a responsibility to be able to move to Israel. I remember that, but again, I didn't know if it would happen. And we lived in Boca for 5 years, then we lived in Teaneck for 5 years, and we really enjoyed that time there. Until we thought, are we gonna do this or not? And I went on a pilot trip. Pilot trip, often Nefesh B'Nefesh thinks is, you know you're gonna make Aliyah, so go on a pilot trip. And I give my husband credit for this. He went on the pilot trip in December, and I wasn't sure if I was gonna go, because I knew intellectually that living in Israel was correct. I knew the Torah told us, I knew that the Jews should be there, but it was whether or not I was gonna be able to do that. And he said, why don't you go with a friend? And I was like, what could be so bad? So I went in February for a few days with my good friend. And the turning point of that trip was not that it made me want to make Aliyah more, but it made me realize I could make Aliyah. It made me realize when I looked at the supermarkets, I looked at the communities, I looked at the schools, I said, I could do this. And once I saw I could do it, I felt the responsibility to try it. And I would say it's almost the difference between Lech Lecha and Shlach Lecha. Right? I know Shlach Lecha didn't end as well as we wanted to. But Lech Lecha is really hard. If you've grown up with that for your life, even if you have grown up with that for your life, it's really hard thing to do. It's really hard thing to feel. But Shlach Lecha, see if you could do it. See if you could make it work. See if your job could work here. See if you could choose a community. That's something totally different. And that's really what changed my perspective. And again, choosing a community wasn't easy. Leaving the family wasn't easy. And before that, I would say I wanted to move to Israel for the ideological reasons. And now looking back, I could see what my family has gained from living in Israel. That I could see this community, that I'm a part of something bigger. I'm a part of Am Yisrael throughout the entire country. And when we go to the shuk on Rosh Hashanah and everyone's saying Shana Tova, my kids are growing up with not the holiday season of Christmas, but rather the holiday season of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot. And that's something that is really dear to my heart, that it's I'm threaded with Am Yisrael, something that I couldn't have imagined being. I would say before, I couldn't see the forest from the trees. And it's only once doing that, once seeing I was able to do it, it gave me the strength to do it. So I encourage everybody to visit Israel as much as possible. And while you're visiting, look at it with a different type of eye. Look at it in a way of, could I be here at some point in my life? Could I spend more time here? Can this be my supermarket? Can this be my community? Can this be my kids' school? And that's very, very different than going on a vacation. And those things are both amazing. but having that flip of the switch is what helped me. And it's just, I'm putting it out there if it could possibly help other people. But in the modern times, what I think that could be the most helpful is raising this awareness with our family and our children. The Yerushalayim, again, I think Corona crisis is making us aware of times that we never thought we would be aware of. I never thought that I wouldn't be able to jump on a plane back to America. In my wildest dreams, I never thought that. I never thought I wouldn't be able to jump in the car and go to the hotel. And it's making us aware of a time in our life that if you've wanted to do something, find a way to do it. Don't push things off. And that's really what I've been thinking about through this, 40-day period. Just to go back and summarize what we've said, that why do we face Yerushalayim when we daven? Going back to the beginning, why is it the Shar HaShamayim? If you look at the past, right, that famous song, Shar HaShamayim, I won't sing it because I got my mother's voice, not my father's, unfortunately. But it's the Shar HaShamayim because in the Torah, something really special happened there, that the coming together of Malchi Tzedek, Melech Shalem, and of Avraham about to do the Akedah there. Those two things joined together made this word Yerushalayim. That's the past. Hashem then said, Hamakom asher yivchar Hashem. That's the place that I choose. That's the place that you should be going to visit 3 times a year at least, right? That's the place that Shlomo is going to build the Beit HaMikdash. And in the future, what's going to be, Yerushalayim is going to stand very tall. I'm just running through this over here. Yerushalayim is going to stand very, very tall. Not only people will know it, but on a physical plane, it's going to stand very tall and high. And we're going to have this idea of the Beit Din. That's going to bring us all together. And that's going to be an exciting time in Jewish history. And then now, as I said, the modern times, which of course is the hardest, that when we're davening, and especially when we're davening by ourselves now, that turning your heart towards Yerushalayim, thinking of those images that you've spent there, thinking of the images that we talked about, thinking in the Torah about those images, can help you turn your heart towards Yerushalayim, and really like Shlomo HaMelech said, upanita, to turn your heart towards God and really pour out your heart towards God, because that's what He is there for. And if we do some of those things and we tell our kids about it, they'll only gain from it. I know sometimes it's awkward to share these things with our kids. It's emotional, but the more we do it, the more that it will build up their sense of Yerushalayim. And as I said, if you're able to go visit, that's incredible. And when you visit, put the hotel, make that number 1. Drop your bags, go to the hotel, right? And get to the hotel, even if it's at night. Show them that's a priority. We do something special. We go to the hotel, and then we go upstairs and we get pizza and we get Gatorade, and that makes it a whole special event for my kids. And I hope that they'll look at that time very fondly. So those are my thoughts on Yerushalayim and what I've been thinking about throughout this time. And I'm so happy to have been able to join this amazing team that spoke this morning and to be in BRS with you guys. Again, as I said, it was such a special time in our life. And if anybody wants the source sheet or has questions, please let me know. Happy to answer questions or happy to send you the source sheet. Thank you, Rabbi Moskowitz, for organizing this and for reaching out to me. Always helps me feel a part of the Boca community from far.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. That was fantastic. And thank you for the personal name. I want to thank everyone who's been joining us all day for 5 really fantastic classes, each very inspirational and personal. And if you're like me and you've watched all 5 of them, I hope you today with a greater appreciation of Eretz Israel, those who have moved to Eretz Israel, and really given us a lot of food for thought about not if, but when you and I will find ourselves joining these 5 wonderful individuals in the land of Israel. Hopefully we'll be your neighbors soon. I want to wish everyone a Yom Ha'ut Sameach. Again, thank you, Ms. Jacobs, so much. I know it was a little bit of a time crunch for you, and we really appreciate you fitting us in. Everyone have a wonderful, wonderful Yom Ha'ut.